Hey everyone. I just wanted to come on here and talk about like what is a socialist, Um, Today in the modern environment, the word socialist has become diluted. It's just a label that's thrown around nowadays. Nobody really knows what it means. Everyone has the assumptions of what they mean. It's applied to everything from like trade union organizers to online commentators and like working class people to people who've never gotten a paycheck. Um, and generally today, socialism is just, it's in terms of modern discourse among the majority of prominent socialists, it's for aesthetics. It's about aesthetics and at the abstract instead of the material. Um, so I just want to make this video to kind of define what socialism is, not in an academic sense or a compromise. I'm explaining what I mean when I say socialist. And I'm saying this from a labor socialist view, like the original pre-Marx socialist view, you know. Um, One point I want to bring up is socialism is a labor movement, not a cultural movement. Socialism originates in labor. It's rooted in the collective experience of the working class and them organizing to go against exploitation and seeking to have a better life and better pay, to have a fair life, have a fair chance at just life. Um, Socialism exists and was created because workers organize themselves and in response to real conditions, real material factors that they experience, not because they adopted an ideology. And this is where the modern discourse about socialism goes wrong. Usually, socialism gets reduced into a just like a cultural symbol, a cultural marker. Um, it's a modern socialism. What these people do, it's all about the language that you use or the authors they cite or the slogans that they repeat. But none of that's real socialism. None of that's the historical, true worker-focused socialism. Socialism is defined by the relationship between the worker and capital, um, and by collective efforts to assert um, human dignity, security, and power for the worker. If socialism becomes detached from labor, if it becomes a cultural movement or just a platform for slogans, it ceases to be socialism. It becomes a lifestyle. Now, I had a comment on my last video about Hassan, or someone pointed out that Eugene Debs was making six figures as the head of a union. Um, Wealth doesn't automatically disqualify someone from being a socialist. A socialist can be wealthy. That may make some people uncomfortable, but it's accurate. Um, what matters is not the amount of money someone has, it's whether they've separated themselves from the working class. If someone gains wealth through the labor that they put in, the labor that they just do, and remains materially aligned with the worker, the working class, and living amongst them, and supporting the labor struggles and maintaining the accountability that they've had, and refusing to separate themselves or insulate themselves from the realities that workers face, then wealth itself is not the issue. The issue at hand is class separation. When wealth becomes a barrier that removes someone from risk, dependence on labor, or solidarity, then the socialist claim collapses. Socialism is about alignment with workers, not personal, um, just yeah, not like personal status. Um, where what I was trying to infer about the Hassan video and where I draw the line at, and where it's historically been drawn, is being born into wealth. Those born into wealth cannot be a socialist in the full sense of the term. They can support the labor movements, or they can advocate for worker protections, or they can do all these slogans and such, but they are not formed by the conditions in labor. They do not experience the world through the constraints and pressures and vulnerabilities that the worker faces, that that the working class has to deal with. And this is why I say figures like Hassan, regardless of their rhetoric or what they chant and shout or say on their streams, they should not be treated as socialists because their relationship to socialism is ideological, not existential. This isn't an accusation of morals or anything like that. It's the reality. If you've never had to depend on labor to survive, to live, you cannot claim a labor identity and like retroactively. And another part of why I say Hassan is not a socialist and why a lot of modern socialism isn't socialism is the performative aspect of it. Um, these people they quote theory, or they deploy slogans, or they win debates, or they adopt the aesthetics of the radical movement, but that doesn't make them a socialist. They aren't truly in solidarity with the worker. They don't put forward the sacrifice, or they don't face accountability towards the workers. Socialism isn't proven by how well you can cite literature, or how aggressively you can posture. It's proven through action, through organizing, supporting labor, and standing with the working class, even when it's inconvenient or costly. Theory can be useful, but when theory replaces labor engagement, it becomes empty. Socialism is not something you perform, it's something you practice. Um, and another topic is some people associate socialism with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and I kind of got into that a little bit on the Hassan video, but I'm not a Marxist. I reject Marx entirely. Um, and why I do this is because Marxism treats socialism as a temporary phase. Marx treats socialism as a step towards the stateless, classless communism that he defines in his theory, in Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto. Um, Socialism in Marxist theory is a tool to be discarded once its function is complete. Marxism isn't socialism. You can't be a Marxist socialist. If you're a socialist, Marx just disregards you. You're a stepping stone onto his classless, stateless society. Marxist theory is fundamentally at odds with classical and labor-focused socialism. Socialism is not a stepping stone. It is the end. A system that is centered on worker dignity, stable labor relations, and moral responsibility, and social solidarity. Marxism subordinates the working class to historical determinism and abstract class theory and the dissolution of institutions. Um, Labor socialism does the opposite. It centers the workers as the moral agents, um, and it treats stable institutions like unions, um, and communes and communal responsibility as essential. Historically, Marxism displaced labor movements rather than strengthened them. It redirected worker energy away from concrete gains into ideological projects that often end with centralized power and worker dispossession. So when I say Marxist socialism is not real socialism, um, I mean that it's an entirely different thing. It uses socialist language, and but it's not socialist in its outcomes. It's simply a stepping stone towards Marxist theory of communism. Um, for me personally, socialism isn't a label or a theory or a cultural posture. It's um, it's a labor identity rooted in the material conditions of the worker, solidarity with the worker, and responsibility to workers. Um, it demands alignment, not aesthetics, participation, not performance, and loyalty to labor, not abstract ideology. You don't have to accept my definition, but if we refuse to define socialism in the material terms or in material terms at all, then the word becomes empty. It becomes just another label thrown around that just confuses people and serves no purpose. And when socialism becomes an empty term, it no longer serves the worker, unions, or the future. Um, I just thought I'd, get on here and talk about that a little bit. Hopefully this clarifies some things up. Um, yeah, that's about it. See ya.